I want to introduce the Executive Director of the Arctic Economic Council, well known in the Arctic scenery. Mats, welcome again to stage. There's nothing more I have to see. I don't know if you have a green dream or a blue dream.
I have a dream, and the dream right now is I'm going to be speed talking through a PowerPoint, and the point here is to show you how the dream about the green transition might have changed. So these people, the Vikings, they had a dream. They sailed across the Arctic in search of trade. Another man that had a dream was this guy.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
10 years later, he landed people on the moon. And this is the kind of conversations we heard about the green transition a few years ago. This visionary is not what we hear from the White House today, the same vocabulary. This is, yes, there were investments. These are like a few years old, these two pictures. But the times, they are changing. So in Mo i Rana, Freyr, the battery dream fairy tale collapsed. If we go over to Sweden, Europe's electric battery dream ran out of power. Northvolt went bankrupt. The president of the European Commission, he went to Greenland because he wanted to build up a green transition in Greenland, he said. But another man also had a dream about Greenland, which was this guy. So he said he was also going to go to Greenland. And so did his son.
And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future.
Well, let's see. But it was all about the raw materials. And raw materials are critical raw materials, because we don't have enough of them. If we want to build the wind turbines, what you see here is the current supply today, that's on the left. And then you see the middle one, that's the demand, and then you see currently what we have. So yes, we need a lot more raw materials. Still, we are in this situation that there hasn't opened a new mine until very recently for 40 years in Norway. So everyone knows we need more raw materials, but no mines are opening up in Norway. Yes, in Sweden, they do have rare earth elements. The forecast is it will take around 20 years to get these minerals out of the ground. So we're not going to go into rare earth elements in Sweden and tomorrow. It will take 20 years. In the same place, we also have LKAB doing their fossil-free steel that we heard a lot about. But very recently, they came out saying, hey, we are postponing the process of the fossil-free steel. It is not happening as fast as possible. They were going to use hydrogen. And hydrogen is also in a little bit of a crisis around the world. Over a fifth of all European hydrogen projects stalled or cancelled, a recent report came out with. And this is not only about producing the hydrogen, it's throughout the whole value chain. It's from policy that is lagging behind, tech advancements, fuel advancements, customer demands, and the finance sector. And at the same time, while hydrogen is lagging a little bit behind, we see oil companies dropping renewable goals. And oil companies are investing more in oil and less in renewable energy. And it's not only oil companies. We also see European nations importing record numbers of Russian LNG from the Arctic for the past 2 years. Some people are still trying to say, no, maybe there's a renewable energy dream. So in Alaska, they are still trying to build wind turbines. But wind turbines are controversial. Most famous in Norway, we knew that the resistance to wind turbines is considerably stronger than any demonstrations I've ever seen against oil and gas in Norway. So I've seen more demonstrations for wind turbines than I've seen for oil and gas. And since we are an educational institution, this report or this study came out recently that currently in the world, there are more space being used for golf courses than wind and energy projects. But I haven't seen those big demonstrations against golf courses, but I've seen those big demonstrations against wind turbines. And then we got this guy again.
My administration is also working on a gigantic natural gas pipeline in Alaska, among the largest in the world, where Japan, South Korea, and other nations want to be our partner with investments of trillions of dollars each. There's never been anything like that one.
No, never been anything like that. $1 trillion being invested in LNG together with international partners. This is not only the US, it's also South Korea and Japan. At the same time, this young generation that used to demonstrate on Fridays for Future are saying, no, we do not want to work in the mining sector. So a report came out a few years ago that said the mining sector is less attractive to young people than the oil and gas sector. And we know we need raw materials to reach the green transition. You need 7 times more raw materials to build an electric car than you need to build a diesel car. And talking about jobs, we also have a lot of people leaving from the north. So we know we have opportunities in the north for the green transition. We have amazing opportunities in the north for mining, for green energy, but 1 in 3 people in North Norway is considering moving within the next 5 years. This is a report from Sparebanken that came out. And this is across the region. So I'm not going to go into detail of this one, but you can find the graph out here on the table in Business Index North, basically saying that the biggest growth sector in the Arctic region is old people. And the working force is decreasing more and more. So, coming to the end here, before I invite people on stage to talk about this dream or nightmare, there was this dream about the Vikings that sailed out in 963 because they have a dream about trade and new investments and so on. And this dream has always been about the new shipping routes will be green in the Arctic. But the question is this dream frozen or is this green transition still happening? And to discuss is the dream still alive or is the green dream dead? I have a panel that represents the hydrogen sector, that represents university, that represents the legal indigenous rights, and that represents the labor union. So please, the panelists, if you can join me on stage and we will start the discussion about the dream. Thank you. Please. So we will split this conversation into 3 parts. The first part will be about what was this Arctic Green Dream that we all talked about? What did we envision? And we'll start over here in a second. And then we'll get into what's the status of this dream? Has it turned into a nightmare? And why did the dream die? We heard from the ambassadors before that security and green transition, you can easily do both at the same time. You can walk and you can chew gum at the same time. And then how can we make this dream reality if we conclude it has died? But before, I just want, instead of me introducing you, I think it's much easier for you introducing yourself. So why don't we start with you, Gry, please?
Thank you. I'm Gry Alsos. I'm the Dean of Nordion University Business School, which is a business school here in Bodø. And my background in the scientific way is within innovation and entrepreneurship.
Innovation, entrepreneurship, and business school. So here we have the research. Then we have the labor unions. We talked about jobs.
Yeah, I'm Tomasgard, and I represent the Confederation of Norwegian Trade Unions. We have 23 national trade unions who is in the umbrella organization, which I have a place. And we represent all the work life. And my responsibility area is the environmental, the climate. I have the industry, the energy. I also have the secure and defense and the justice policy. So
small issues like that.
Yeah, but I think that if you go back to when I was taking over these areas, we was working with the industry that day, and then we was working with energy, and then we was working with defense policy. Today we work with all in all because it's merging together. Industry and industry policy is today also defense policy and security and energy. So everything is merging together. So that's it's interesting, but it's also scary.
And then we have the indigenous rights lawyer here as well, which is an important part. Please introduce yourself, Agnete.
Thank you. My name is Ragnhild Sara. I'm a lawyer, and I'm also a Sami woman, grown up in a traditional reindeer husbandry family. So I'm deeply committed to protecting indigenous rights and upholding their human rights. And also the environment, because those are intrinsically connected, those issues. Yeah, what else?
And you will come from the legal perspective in this conversation.
Yeah, that's my purpose.
And then all the way from Sweden, we have Max. Please introduce yourself, Max.
Firstly, because this is very important in the world today, thank you, Max. I think it's very important that we start with that thank you, and I have witnesses that I did say thank you to you. Because this is the world we're living in today. We're living the nightmare, not the dream, as you said. But for myself, I'm still holding on to that dream. I work for Nordion Energy. which is the gas transmission systems operator for Sweden. Personally, I am involved in developing hydrogen infrastructure, large-scale distribution systems across the Nordics and to continental Europe to transport green hydrogen from where it's produced to where it's needed.
Perfect, thank you. So we have hydrogen, we have the legal issues and indigenous rights, we have the workforce, and we have the science. I mean, a perfect panel to talk about what was the green dream, you know, and also the dream for the Samis, the dream for the workers, the dream for the business. Could you maybe take us off here? What was the dream if we go back 10 years, 5 years?
Well, there's a lot of perspectives, and I think you took one important one when you introduced it. To me, the Green Dream was also about all the people that were engaged in this, all the students that presented their visions for a sustainable future or protested against issues where they fear to destroy their future. About all the entrepreneurs that were motivated by starting companies based on this green vision of the future. All the debates, all the protests, all the engagement in the green future. And I think along with the investments that has been disappearing, as you showed us, it's also so that the debates have been disappearing a little bit from the news, from the conferences like this. Therefore, it's very important that we talk about it today, and so on. And that is, I find disturbing.
And at the university, was there like green dreams? I guess you came up with, I'm just guessing now, but most universities came up with an ESG plan and sustainability plan and installed small solar panels and so on. Like, how was the dream here at the university overall? Like, also about the students and in the institution?
Yeah, at the business school, in our strategy, we have sustainable value creation as our core value. And that is not unique, I think, in the sense that a lot of universities and business schools has that on our agenda. And of course, we teach this, and we still experience that students are interested and concerned about the future. But the last couple of years, 3 or 4 years, I think we have seen the shift in those areas as well, that that interest or the engagement is fading a little bit, and that, as I said, that is disturbing.
And I want to go to the labor unions, because when I've talked about this in the past, I've always talked about the opportunities in the north. You know, like Murugan would have attract 5,000 workplaces. Northvolt would have 7,000 people, and it will be, you know, it will be the people that were leaving the region will come back and they will work in the north and they will help in the green transition. Now we see one project after another collapsing. So what was the dream from the labor union? What was the dream from the workers' side about the future back then?
I think I will go back to where I grew up in one of the famous Norwegian fjords, beautiful Hardanger fjord. They come from an industry city called Odda. And when I grew up in the 1970s, the fjord was poisoned. It was totally red. You could not eat the fish. The blades on the trees was not coming green in the autumn. Everything was very grey. It was also, and my introduction to the politics was as environmental actionists. And you know, the industry workers, they was very angry at us youths, because we say you have to clean up the fjord, you have to stop the pollution and the emission to the air and all these things. And it was in the start when we was coming into the trade unions and start working inside, and told our colleagues that if we are continue to poison the fjord, or if we are continue to all this emission to the air and destroy the environmental, then and no one will buy our products in the future. We cannot do it as we did it yesterday. We have to take care of what the market will ask for in the future. And I saw when I was in the COP in Madrid, outside San Bernabé Stadium, I think it was 500,000 youths who was demonstrating for the climate. And I think the same story. We cleaned up the fjord. Today you can eat the fish. They have just invested about 12 billion Norwegian crowns in that factory. It's a Swedish-owned Boliden. They had to open at the last Monday. It's a fantastic story. And I think the same story is going on again when you come from environmental to the climate. I think the future market, because the 500,000 youths I saw outside Sandberg Stadium, that's the future market. That's those who shall buy electrical vehicles, those who shall buy technical things, all you need in a modern life. And they will ask for the footprints for CO2 emissions. They will ask for the environmental print. So I think if we don't are able to make the green transition, then we will go into a nightmare because our workers, our members will lose their jobs. That's a nightmare. My dream was to take action and make the transition from good, safe jobs today and also into good, safe jobs tomorrow when you have taken the green transition. And I also think that you show the picture of the President of the USA, Donald Trump. You see what he is doing now at public sector. Okay, because people in a huge part of the United States, they lost their jobs. They are angry. They lost their hope for the future, and they are taking action. They are voting as a protest Donald Trump as a president because they don't have any hope. And you see what is also going on the public sector today. Destroy the public sector, lower taxes and all these things and the welfare, and it will take decades to build it up again.
But if we go back to, like, Donald Trump is saying, I'm going to invest trillions in LNG, and we hear the same from oil and gas companies around the world. If I was a young, trained, skilled worker today, like vocational training, and I could decide to study something that will make me relevant in the oil and gas sector, or something that will make me relevant in a potential hydrogen sector, you know, would your members decide to go? A well-paid oil and gas, stable, reliable, long-term job position, or go to Sweden for a hydrogen project that might close down in 5 years? You know, like.
No, it's a good question, and I think it's obviously what you would also which way you would go, and I think that that's about. This is the difficult part because this is a transition. You cannot stop everything you are doing today and then run over the floor and put on everything you should do the next day on a green way. You have to take the transition, and I think that's maybe it will go longer time than we thought. And I think also the war is going on. You see we should produce all the military materials, weapons, all these things. It's taking raw materials, it's taking workforces, it's taking energy, it's taking the finance money. It's also influence on the situation. So, because I can ask you back, why shouldn't they go to the defense industry?
No, and is
that what we should base our future on?
But that's a good question as well. Like, because we had a previous panel where they said defense and green transition can happen at the same time, but we have limited workforce, we have limited money. So you need to decide: are you going to go and build weapons? Are you going to build hydrogen?
But you have to understand that is. I think that's on the basic. You are on the basic. Security is the basic for everything, and that's why we have to go in this way. So Sweden should invest now 300 billions in the defense industry, and here in Norway we have decided, I think, 1,200 billions in, and we are not against it because we see the situation. We are concerned about what is going, and I think Europe have to build up the forces, but you have to also see that will influence on the speed of the green transition, and I think that's a part of the answer. It's not the whole answer, but it's a part of it.
Yeah, and we will get back to the speed, and I also want to get back into who built this dream. You know, was it the youth, the 5,000 people demonstrating? Was it the politician? Who was creating this dream? Was it the best private sector? And I'm not sure if it was a dream for everyone the last 5 years. So Ragnhild, how was from all of Sápmi, where was the perspective on this dream that everyone was talking about in mainly outside of the region? How was the dream seen there? If we go back 5 years, maybe.
Yeah, we could do that, but I could also state that on behalf of me, and I think I will speak on behalf of most of indigenous peoples, when I say that our green dream is that the green shift should not involve destroying nature and the environment and the biodiversity and polluting the land. That should not be a part of the green shift. So, and for 5 years ago, for the Sami people, they experienced it as a threat, coming from outside or from above. That decisions were made without their consent or anyone interested in hearing their true perspective on this shift.
So how would you describe and I'm curious about this because I've been in many conversations with Samis who has been speaking about green colonialism and this invasion. But what is the dream from the Sami people? You know, I'm curious to hear about, let's go back, not to the current situation where we are today, but like what was the dream maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago from the Samis of how to develop society, keep people here, have schools, have hospitals, have a tax revenue, and at the same time protecting nature and reindeer herding areas and so on. Like, could you try to elaborate on the dream?
Yeah, the perspective is that there should be possibility for economical development and development in society without destroying the nature, like preserving the reindeer husbandry and the land use that already exists in the Arctic, because it's been there for hundreds of years, and they have preserved the nature in a way that hasn't destroyed it. So in the Sami opinion, there should be possibilities for development without destroying what already exists. And in these times of climate change and loss of biodiversity, all of us are facing huge challenges, and the solution could be to protect the indigenous land, because the indigenous peoples represent 5% of the world population, and 80% of the biodiversity that is left on Earth's planet is on indigenous lands. So I think the world should have the possibility to protect those lands. I mean, we could still develop and live good lives, but also in the indigenous way of life thinking, we should think 7 generations in front of us. And they should have something to live off in the future as well. So we shouldn't.
And just very briefly here, like in the end, we will elaborate more on it. If we go back in time and all the dreams, we should build wind turbines and all of this, mining and so on. Was the legal framework in place to protect the Sami rights? Well, has it been strong enough? Because as I see it, every time there's been a conflict, it has gone to court and the court has decided it. And so far, it seems like there has been a strong, like for me, it seems like it's been a strong, robust legal framework. But was the legal framework ready for the dream?
Absolutely not, and still isn't. There are indigenous rights and human rights protecting indigenous peoples all over the world, and especially in the Scandinavian lands, because we have adopted international human rights in a better way than many other countries. But the issue is that those international conventions and rights aren't always implemented in the national legislation, domestic legislation. So that's the issue to this day. And for a week ago, the UN Expert Mechanism on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples released a report regarding the indigenous people's rights in Norway. And their conclusion was that many of the laws need to be reviewed to ensure that the indigenous rights are fully respected through the national legislation, especially the Mineral Act and energy sector.
And we'll get back into that because, what's the status of the dream? But Max, I know that you're probably one of the most passionate dreamers about hydrogen, and I think you still have a dream. You know, I don't think it's past tense, but maybe tell me about the hydrogen. Most people here in the room don't know exactly the issue about hydrogen. So just take me through a quick version of the hydrogen dream in Sweden primarily.
Okay, well, thank you, I guess. Firstly, I should caution you that what I say is not necessarily the opinion of my company. So that's a little bit tricky to to juggle, I guess. So I've come up with a rough rule. The words that are in the email from my communications team on my computer, those are the views of my company. The words that come out of my mouth, they're going to be my own. So green hydrogen has been a dream for a while, but I think that it is a fantastic greenwashing agent, the most powerful that I've seen. Because under the guise of green hydrogen, I have seen some of the most polluting industries say that they're going to transition, which is a code of saying, we're going to move to do something as soon as you make this clean green agent as cost competitive as the current polluting process that I do today. So it's a wonderful green washing agent. And so, yeah, there was an unrealistic dream being built up. I mean, keeping track of the green projects in the north, it was like trying to keep track of Elon Musk's children, an impossible task. Every time you looked, there was another one, you know, so I gave up. They announced 100, 200. Were they all going to progress? No. So using that metric, yeah, it's a failure, the dream. But the ideal is the same. Can we do better and end our addiction to fossil fuel? And I'd like to take up a point that you said earlier on, because this is where often you get challenged. You say, but you can't do that, or it'll cost too much. You can't do that. Let's start with that. Let's say, well, what do you lefties like me want? You want us to end industry, shut down travel. Oh, you mean like we did during COVID? Or they say, you're going to impose cost on business. Oh, you mean like Trump did last night with 25% tariffs? You see, I don't see the protests and screams saying, oh, how dare they? Business adapts and moves on. But what you do is if you open a door and say, we're going to do this as soon as it's cost effective and as soon as it's as easy to do as the wrong alternative, the fossil fuels that we're currently producing, there's the wiggle room, and there's a lot of wiggling going on.
Where did you see the drivers from this dream? And I'm going to ask the rest of the same question to the rest of you. Who was driving this dream? Was it the youth on the streets? Was it the private sector? Was it the investors? Was it the politicians?
Well, apparently we all had the same dream. 10 years ago, December 2015, the Paris Agreement. The world said we will take action to prevent certain tipping points being reached in 2030. We're 10 years on from that and 5 years from that deadline. How are we doing? Moving completely in the wrong direction. So the dream was that the Arctic, or us here, would do all the work and make even more sacrifice while the rest of the world could continue business as usual. That was the dream that was sold to us.
So Qvist, they have the largest electric vehicle company is Build Your Dream, or one of the largest in the world. So they talk about dreaming and so on. They came from China. It seems like China did not have a dream about the green transition, but they managed to speed up very, very quickly. Where do you see the dream was coming from? Like here in Norway, where was it the young people at the university, and why did the dream stop? You know where?
Well, I think that it has been a dream of everyone, or a lot of people at least, as it's been said. But before it came to that, there are some visionary people around the world that brings this up on the agenda, the ones that think differently than we did. And I think having the freedom of speech, having the opportunities to bring forward these issues is still very important. I mean, now people should be aware of this, but I'm really concerned about, Trump denying his scholars to work on climate issues, for instance, but also the same tendencies a lot of other places in the world that we are now trying to put down all the voices and silence all the voices that want us to go in this direction.
Do you sense this? Is this an American thing, or do you think this is a global thing?
It's very visible now with Trump being so clear on it. But you mentioned China, and I think you have European countries that have been into similar debates, perhaps not put as hard as we see now from the US, but it's still there, and you can see it on how political movements are changing and that sort of thing. So I think we really need we need the people that are able to vision a different world than the one we live in today, or than some other vision. And we need to hear their voices, and we need to discuss and disagree on it as well. But we, because there are different, I mean, there are different ways of seeing windmills as part of the Green Dream or as a threat to the Green Dream. And that we need to bring on the agenda. I think that's important. But I think if we lose the debates on this, the voices, then we'll lose the battle as well, I think.
And I'm curious about this, because if you look at the numbers, oil and gas and fisheries is what drives the economy of Norway. You know, this is what creates the job, and what gives the welfare state that we have today is thanks to oil and gas and fisheries. Your members, were they a little bit scared of this whole green dream transition, that job will be lost in traditional industries, in, you know, the traditional factories that they've been working, what has built up Norway? And like, did your members have the same dream that the politicians and the lefties that Max was referring to?
It's you know, we have 1,026,000 members.
You know them all.
And we have all sectors. So it was, I think it was many different dreams, and it was also many concerns. And of course, in the oil, and I represent the trade union who organized the people in the oil sector. And of course, they're very concerned about the future. But it's about, of course, the green shift, but also about that the top year in Norwegian oil production was in 2001. We are half the oil production in Norway today, and which we had in 2001. And we also see that the gas will go down very soon if we don't continue to explore and develop new shelves. And it's a very high voices in the Norwegian debate that they want us to stop exploring. But you know also, if we are stop exploring for gas and develop the new gas shelves in Norway, then we saw what happened in Europe when Europe was having too little energy. The prices was going straight up. People was very angry at their political leaders. They're still angry. You know, was the hybrid and energy war against Europe, because there was about destable Europe before the war was set in 3 years ago. And you know, today we know what it was about. It was about empty the storage of gas in Europe before the winter 2022, because they knew in the Russian side that they would start a war in the wintertime. They knew it was an option. And you know, if you have high energy prices, it go into the bottom line in every companies, every municipals, every holdings. And we also saw that the prices was growing because energy is a part of everything we are doing. Even if we are sitting here, you have energy, we're using energy. And when the price is rising, people have, and it's starting unstable. People are angry. This debate become very hard, and that we have seen. It was a play. And if you come back to the dream, and what is the driver? I think the driver for the green shift was the science. I come from Odda, where my friend lost his house in the river in 2014. The flood is coming more often, it's bigger. We see it in the Mediterranean, the fire burning. We saw it in. There's something happening. I think you don't need to. But this was.
But that's it. And in 2 seconds, I'll also get back to Ragnhild, because this is interesting. The climate change was the driver, and still people are protesting on the streets of Oslo against wind turbines and a wind farm. You know, so there are things that comes into this. So just quick one from Max, and then Ragnhild. I want to hear about the status of the dream, because we are slowly moving into where we're now today with legals and everything. Yeah.
Just to push back against that a little bit, if I may, that this idea that energy prices suddenly exploded out of nowhere. People say it's in response to the war in Ukraine. I say yes, but when did the war in Ukraine start? It wasn't 2022. It was 2014 when Russian troops moved into Crimea. What was the response of our leaders then? Double down on Russian energy, saying if we trade with them more, maybe they'll become friendly. That's the kind of stupidity. So my dream is I want better leaders. I want people who believe in energy independence. You know, when did Repower EU, there was this dream that we were going to end our dependence on fossil fuels. That pivoted suddenly like that to ending dependence on Russian fossil fuels. Suddenly Middle Eastern fossil fuels were great. The name Jamal Khashoggi was suddenly forgotten. Suddenly that was okay.
Quick reply.
No, because you can start in 2011. I was visiting NATO, and there the Russians have their own delegation, and we hope that Russia should become a part of the system, the Western democracy and everything. We had a dream, not only a green dream, we also had a peace dream. And I think we was falling in love with that dream of peace, and that we didn't saw all the alarm we should have seen in 2014. Some of us was addressing, because I have, as I said, responsibility for the Norwegian defense, and there was reducing the defense around over oil activity. And I said clearly in 2017 that if there's something happening in the east, this is a very strategic position. We cannot build it down. That wasn't here because of the political.
Before we get
but
into
the dream, I don't know if they have succeeded. If we had joined, if Russia had become a part of the democracy, if the political have succeed.
That's the fallacy of believing that trade is the answer. There used to be a philosophy that no two countries with McDonald's ever went to war. That's now proved to be a lie. In fact, the home of McDonald's is threatening war. So I'd say that closer ties there must be shared values, not just the exchange of dollars.
And that goes to Ragnhild now, because we talk about shared values. And I'm not sure that necessarily when we talk about shared values and the rights for the climate change, I'm not sure that they're shared by everyone, even within Norway. So this dream, has it turned into a nightmare for the Samis? What's the status of the dream? Where are we now today? Because we see lack of investments in hydrogen. So clearly is this then the dream scenario for the Samis, that we see less investments in wind turbines, we see less investments in mining, we see less investments in hydrogen? Is that then the dream scenario for the Samis, and what's the status of where we are now?
Yeah, that's a good thing that those aren't expanding in that high speed as they were planned to. But for the Samis, the green dream is of course not the same dream as the dream of those colleagues here. So we have different dreams for sure. And I also have to mention that if the climate change is the cause for the green shift, then, well, what is a climate change? Is it caused by human activities and pollution? And if that's the cause, okay, so is the solution then increased pollution in another name, like in the name of green pollution? Is that the solution for real? Well, we can discuss that. Or should we think in other terms, like can we change our way of living and our values and priorities? Yeah, everything wouldn't be idealistic, like what we want to travel. Yes, we don't want to go back to the corona living, but still we have to look at this with real eyes, like what are we really trying to achieve. And also the Paris Agreement in 2015, at the same time there were hundreds of indigenous peoples demonstrating outside, demanding other solutions to the climate change than what those insides were talking about. So this is for sure not a shared dream.
So are there less cabins, less electric vehicles, less trips to the Canary Islands? Is that the future?
No, I think this is difficult because we organize those who work in those sectors. And we also organize youths from the Sami people. They also need jobs. And many of the Sami people, they move out, take education, they come into the work life. Many of them organize in our trade unions. But not so many is going back to Finnmark and to Troms and Nordland, because there are no jobs there. And how would you develop these jobs? And you see the value we can change over way how we live. Monday we shall go to the, I think we call it now Riksmekleren. We had a break in the main negotiation in Norway for pay. And I have never heard anyone of our members, either members from the Sami people, asking for less money when we're going to the negotiation. They want to have rise the level because we want to have the freedom. We have to take share, and that's the way of living. That's about. So we can dream about another way, but I don't hear anyone call for that.
No. So you
Yeah,
want to
I don't think indigenous peoples are against money or economical development or jobs, but it's the destroying of the nature and the land. And it's also true that many indigenous peoples and Sami peoples are not going back to the traditional ways of living because it's getting harder and harder to live by those terms because you have threats from all over, like mines there, windmills there, roads there. Like to really work with reindeer husbandry today is really, really challenging because you have to do like lawyer work at the same time as you're trying to work in a traditional way. So that's
very quick,
harder.
and then I want to hear about the future of jobs.
I
and how
think it's also growing a sort of protest inside the Sami people. We see the Nordkalott people, and they are more positive to these activities. To find, but I think we need a dialogue. We have to find a good solutions. It's not totally black or totally white. You have to find something who make jobs, but also take care as far as possible the nature, because this nature is very important.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
The climate shift, all the climate change, that is also a threat to the nature. I don't know. What will we be able to produce the food in the future if this is going on? What with the reinbeite, I don't know what you call it in English, where the reindeer is eating. What with that? Are you sure that they will stand the way today, have the same quality in 10 years, 20 years if the climate change is going on? I'm not sure. I'm concerned.
we just need to, I just want to hear, because we are talking about the future of jobs and where will people work in the future, the traditional livelihood, new jobs, future jobs, where you're working with young people who are, have to make a career in like career choices. And the choice when you're 17, 18, 19, and you're going to university, you have to make a decision that will change, your career for the next 60 years. Mm-hmm. And prediction is hard, especially about the future. So where are the young people? The entrepreneurship and innovation, is that in defense? Is that in oil and gas? Is that in circular economy, doing more with less? Where do you see any trends with where the young people are studying today?
Well, let me start by saying, when people are not moving back to this area, it's not because there are not jobs, because there are actually very many jobs. So there's another reason. There's some other reason for that. We are lacking people to take all the jobs in all of northern Norway. I think we need to talk more about creating the societies and the way of living that these young people would like to have, and that is important. The students that come into university nowadays, they are almost, at least in this part of the country, they are almost guaranteed a job afterwards. And that is also something, because I think it makes the choice for them really, really hard.
No matter the sector, they can get a job.
Basically, yeah. And we have these very strong voices about the needs of jobs in the health sector, or in the public sector in general. What we do now, at least as economists, is that the world can't survive if everyone is working in the public sector, taking care of. So we need also the value creation, and we need the value creation to be in a way that also make good livings and good societies for the people to work there, for them to come. When it comes to the fish farming industry, aquaculture industry, which is enormously important for a big export industry in Norway, they have a really difficult time attracting workforce. And they need to go to a green transition, obviously, as well. But to do that, they need people that have the knowledge to help them do so, and they need them to come stay working with them.
And we saw some of the entrepreneurs here on stage yesterday speaking about the green transition. I want to do a quick firing round here, just starting with you, Max, and you'll get to comment as well, and then we will open for questions, if there are any questions, about how can we make this dream reality? How can we make the hydrogen dream and the Sami dream and the unions dream and the future entrepreneurship dream? Like, how can we... Clearly, the dream is not where, for none of you has said, we are back in a dreamy world. Clearly there's challenges for all of you. So Max, how are we gonna, is it marketing? Is it legislation, regulation? How do we make the hydrogen dream come back?
Abandon fixed mindsets. The ground is moving so quickly we cannot even comprehend. One of the biggest competitors for energy today is whether it will go into green industry, but also into AI. There is an arms race taking place globally, enormous quantities of energy, to develop a technology that we do not even understand. How AI will change the world, replace millions of jobs, automating drivers and all of those sort of low-paid jobs will disappear. What will happen to society then, when you have tens of millions of people with nothing to do with their days? Will artificial intelligence be benevolent? Will it solve the climate crisis by deciding that humanity is irrelevant? All of these are not impossible scenarios, but we don't even have a say in how this is developing. Yet at the same time, as I say, it's a competitor for energy today. It's affecting how we approach energy infrastructure development at the same time that we said that the climate was an emergency. Doesn't seem to be the case.
No, so the question is change the mindset, but how do we do that?
We need to adjust. We cannot, it's not like supporting your football team, which we talked about a lot about yesterday. That includes holding political leaders to account. Don't just say, I always voted for that party, that's my party. If that party drifts from its values, let's look at the Republican Party in America, don't keep voting for them. Hold leaders, hold business leaders, hold ourselves accountable for our actions.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on that also because this fixed way of thinking, because nowadays we have this debate on, we need to decide which kind of education programs that needs to be offered so that they can fit to today's industry. But most of the jobs that people are going to working in, let's say, 10 or 20 years' time are not created yet. And we don't know now exactly what kind of knowledge they need. And this means that we need flexibility in our education system, and we need varieties of education, and we need to let the interests of the students also decide what kind of education, because they're going to use that, as we heard the students say earlier today, to create the future. Therefore, I just wanted, so it's important also for our systems that we are not so fixed in the way we think about how to create a future.
Ragnhild, how can we make the Sami dream of the future in coexistence, with the rest of the population? How can we merge those two worlds together? Small question, huh?
Yeah, that's a small question. I can answer that one. So I think that the most effective way to fight climate change is to protect indigenous lands. And then we can work together, all of us. You can make those other kinds of land-destroying developments on other areas than indigenous areas. And you won't get those demonstrations and protests from the indigenous peoples. And at the same time, we're working to prevent climate change by protecting 80% of the remaining biodiversity on Mother Earth.
But is that so 40% of Norway is considered Sami land. So you would say no to any development on 40% of Norway's land?
Not to all development.
Okay. But wind turbines and mining?
To those projects that will destroy the livelihood of the people who are already living there. They have the right to exist there. Not all projects destroy their livelihood, so to ensure that that is taken into account, there is another easy solution, and it is to respect the right to free, prior, and informed consent and go into real dialogues with the affected people. And if we have that in the legislation, then all parties of the cases are aware of that. Like, you need to have that in front of starting the project, and if you start with that, you will get you will narrow into one solution in the end. So I think that's the solution.
Very quick here. How can we make the dream reality for your members?
I think we have to work with the reality. I'm very agree with what you said about the new technology, how that will challenge us. And I think it was Stefan Löfven, the Prime Minister in Sweden. He said that we are not scared of new technology. We are afraid we're sitting stuck in old technology. And that we also try to take into the Norwegian trade unions and how we are thinking, because we have been in some very huge transitions. You see the post office, we see the telegraphs, huge change where we have new technology have taken away all the workplaces. So we have to be in it. So that's a big part of it. And I think also we have to be in dialogue, also in the difficult questions. And I think that if you come to minerals, we are using about 20% of all the minerals in the world here in Europe, and we are only producing 3% in Europe. And of course, if we are saying that 40% of our we have a Nussir, is a huge debate in Kvalsund, is one of the biggest sources of copper, and you can come to, and it stopped because of the debates. And I think that then you have to take out that copper another place.
No, definitely. I mean, we need the minerals. So the question is, will come
also
from
the Sami people need the minerals. It's on the phones, it's in the copters, in the scooters, in the drones, everything you use to run the reindeer branches. So I think you need the minerals also. And where should we pick it? Where should we take it? It will have footprint everywhere you take it out from nature. Also in your country, we have to have a good dialogue and find the solutions.
If there's any questions, please raise your hands. And I see 3 questions at least. So let's and please keep your questions short and don't say, I have 3 questions. And then, just one quick question. And we will take 3 and then we'll round up.
Okay, hi, my name is Hannah. I'm from Alaska and I am with the High North Dialogue Academy. My question is about nuclear energy. But part of our program talked about the potential of having that in rural areas, and I just have a small statement about I don't believe that urbanization is the end-all be-all of the future of the Arctic. So I'm curious about your ideas about rural energy or rural communities using nuclear energy.
Perfect, clear and simple. And then we just need to get anyone who wants to answer while we get the microphone. No, we'll get the microphone down.
I can jump in there.
Yeah,
Nuclear energy is my favorite greenwashing exercise. It's a way of saying you're going to do something 30 years from now and not have to do anything today. However, despite my personal views, the disintegration of NATO means that I suspect that every country will be dusting off their nuclear weapons program under the guise of decarbonizing through nuclear energy.
If you can answer very quick on nuclear.
About 20% of all power is produced in the Nordic countries is from nuclear. So I'm not against it, because then we will have a huge problem in the Nordic energy system. But I think it's a huge problem, because if you should develop new nuclear plants, it will take 10 to 15 years. I agree with the answer.
We have another question? Yeah.
Yeah, hi, my name is Espen. I work for the Bodø municipality. You talk a lot about changing mindsets. There was a recent survey that showed 50% of business leaders in Nordland did not see sustainability as a strategic question. At the same time, 8 out of 10 business leaders in Nordland are men, often at a more advanced age. So could you comment on how to lift alternative and maybe also younger and female voices in this world? Thank you.
Yeah. And just behind you, there's one more question. You will get the one.
Petter Norre, I'm professor here at North University, teaching at the business school. Last year, I took my master's students. I teach energy transition. I took them to Skellefteå in order to show them a dream. Okay? This year, my master students have one other thing to do, and that is to explain to me why this was a failure. And I'm just going to give you the key reason why this was a failure. It just have nothing to do with the global collapse in the green projects. China was totally underestimated as a potential competitor in this game. So we have gone back to the projections for demand for batteries when Northvolt actually went and made their investment decision. And lo and behold, really China did not almost exist in that analysis. And today we all know that the Chinese are world leaders in batteries, PVs, and electric vehicles. So there is an international part of this story that needs to be taken into account. And then one quick question to Max. I've been following the sort of green steel based on hydrogen in northern Sweden. That has the potential for being a success. If you have other way of looking at it, please let me know, so I can adjust my dream a little bit.
So we have 2.5 minutes left, and I will let you start, and then Max, and then if anyone else has any contribution. So about the gender diversity and changing mindsets and connection with old white men sitting back making the decisions.
Yeah, I felt that you rephrased the question now, but let me start. I think there is this global survey that's going on every year called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor that we are part of doing in Norway. And one of the measures is whether the entrepreneurs that want to start new business, whether they are motivated by sustainability questions or also whether their business have sustainability strategies. And I don't remember the number exactly, but I think about 40% of the startups. And we think we are really clever in the Nordic countries, but we are not. So these are issues that are much more concern for entrepreneurs elsewhere than in Norway and Sweden, for instance. And I think that reflects to what you were saying, is that I think we have this image of being really good at this, yeah. And that we need to bring forward voices that tells us differently, and we need to bring these issues on the agenda. And here in this local municipality, there is an organization that promotes young people between 40 and 80 into the company boards. You don't always have to look for the one with the longest resume. You can look for the young, energetic people. And I think initiatives such as that is a way to make changes also in the established small businesses.
Perfect. Max, any comment on the Sweden case?
Very quickly, just on the sustainability. Business leaders who don't prioritize sustainability, don't worry, they'll fix themselves. A business that cannot be sustained won't be. If you're going to manufacture something for €1.50 and sell it for €1, you're going to find out the hard way about sustainability. Sustainability always should be at the heart of your business. On the question of steel, I wish I could turn the mic off because, again, this is my personal opinion. Green iron has huge potential for Europe. 80% of Europe's iron ore lies in the north of Sweden. If we could decarbonize that using hydrogen as a reduction agent to produce the precursor for green steel, how wonderful. We could decarbonize all of Europe's steel in production. What is the risk there? The problem is if we do it in isolation. If you're a steel mill in Czechoslovakia or something else, and Sweden is the only supplier of green iron ore, that is a business risk. It means you have a single supplier who in the future can dictate prices. That is unacceptable from a business point of view. Again, it has to be sustainable. So therefore, we need the world to act, and that's why I say we cannot have dreams in isolation. We cannot have Arctic dreams. We cannot have Bordeaux dreams. We need to dream better together.
Final comments from Ari and
because you bring up China, and I think that we shall not forget that China is not a democracy, and we can buy cheap products from China as long as China want to sell them to us. But we saw that Russia, they were starting to stop the gas supply to Europe, and we saw the result. And we also, if we are dependent on minerals from China, from products from China, okay, But if we are coming in a situation in the world, for example, Taiwan or something like that, then remember, China is not a democracy. My dream, green dream, is green, democratic dream. It's not a dream about that regimes like China or other is getting much more power in the world. That is going to happen now as this continues.
You get the final word, Ragnhild, if you have anything to the dream.
Thank you. My last words are, we cannot have dreams about indigenous lands without respecting the indigenous peoples and their right to live on their lands. So we can take a look at Donald Trump and what he's doing in Greenland. And the same thing is happening all over the world, except it's within the country, and it's the country leaders against indigenous peoples. So we have to end that mindset and end the colonization. And if we manage to do that, I think we're a huge step forward.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause to this panel.